something I didn't know much about. There is a whole group of psychics being run by the CIA and the Defense Intelligence Agency at the time. They called them remote viewers. And these were people who would sit in dark rooms and theoretically use ESP to get to the bottom of international crises.
We did a little research on you. You're born on February the 10th. I won't give the year of your birth because you and I, we look so good, Stephanopoulos, that we should be lying about our age at this point in our lives. But you were born on February 10th, which makes you an Aquarius.
I am.
Now, our four
and
greatest presidents.
You.
You're not that much older than me, believe it or not. Okay, but I don't know. I just turned 60, so I'm getting up there, my friend. But in any event, you're an Aquarius. There are four presidents that are Aquarians of significance. I'm gonna tell you who they are: George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, who's born 2 days after you on February 12th, Ronald Reagan on February 6th, and of course there's FDR, born on January 30th, 1882.
Oh, wow.
And so that's the horoscope moment for Open Book. Now let's go to the psychic moment. We're going to go to the psychic moment of Open Book.
Story in the book.
Okay. And this is a story that surprised you the most. And it obviously surprised me. Jimmy Carter used psychics during the Iran hostage crisis. So tell us what you uncovered there.
Incredible story, which I had never heard before. We were doing our research and I came across a single line in Jimmy Carter's presidential diary. It was from May 1980. And it said, had a meeting in the Situation Room on parapsychology, longitude, latitude, etc. And one line, but it obviously piqued my interest because it had parapsychology and Situation Room in the same sentence. And I'm writing a book about the Situation Room. This meeting had never been written before. My team and I looked through all of the published materials, couldn't find anything written about this meeting. But working through the Carter library, we were able to figure out who might still be alive, who would know something about that meeting, because one of the other people in the meeting was 𝗕tože. Of course, he's passed away. But I was able to find a man named Jake Stewart, who was President Carter's naval aide. And we found out that he might have been in that meeting. So I emailed him, I called him. He was very reluctant to speak. Finally, after about 3 emails and several conversations, he finally agreed to do the Zoom. And we set up the Zoom. We start the interview. And I said, this May 1980 meeting, tell me about this meeting. And he just sat back, smiled, and laughed and said, you found out about that, huh? And proceeded to tell me the most incredible story. This is May 1980. This is 2 weeks after the failed rescue mission of the Iran hostages, which basically crippled the Carter presidency. Carter is desperate.
He's probably finished it. Yep.
Yeah, he's running against Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan is doing well in the polls. Inflation is high. The economy is stuck in the mud. He needs to do something, and his rescue mission has failed. So he's desperate times call for desperate measures, right? He's willing to consider anything. It turns out that Jake Stewart was the expert in the White House on something I didn't know much about. There is a whole group of psychics being run by the CIA and the Defense Intelligence Agency at the time. They called them remote viewers. And these were people who would sit in dark rooms and theoretically use ESP to get to the bottom of international crises. It was called Operation Girl Flame. Some people swear that it had some reasonable success, would be right 30 to 40% of the time that they were able to call that they were able to find out about a plane crash in Africa where several were killed. According to one report, one of the remote viewers had a vision of helicopters crashing in the desert on the same day that the helicopters did indeed crash in the desert. So anyway, Jake Stewart goes to the Situation Room. It's just him, the president, 𝗕tože, and interestingly, Rosalind Carter, the first lady. You don't hear about first ladies in the Situation Room at all, but that was because she was kind of a big believer in psychics and ESP. She had become a friend of, remember Uri Geller,
Yeah, sure, of course. He could bend the spoons. Yeah, of course.
She had a several hours long meeting with him. She believed in it. So they call Jake Stewart in. He gives them an entire briefing on the work of government psychics in the CIA and the intelligence community. Carter doesn't say a word. And at the end of this briefing, he takes out his notepad and simply writes one word on it and pushes it across the table to Stewart. You can guess what the word was.
Bullshit.
Hostages.
No. Hostages. Okay, there you go. He was
hostages. Can you help?
That's it.
And
that's it. Yeah.
That was one thing to help, figure out where the hostages might be. Stewart took it on. He maintains that that through the work of the psychics, they were able to locate one of the hostages, Richard McQueen, who was suffering from multiple sclerosis, and were able to figure out where he was, and that he was actually taken out before later that summer. Of course, the rest of the hostages were not released until Ronald Reagan was inaugurated several months later.
What an incredible story, and I'm so glad that you were able to regale it here.